Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am Leslie, and today I wanted to talk about something that many of you may be dealing with, because I know it is something that I have definitely dealt with and something I've had to think about and consider when I'm doing my own budget and trying to figure out how much I should be spending each month. So if you look at the people around you, you may feel like you have less money than everyone else. It may seem like everyone around you is doing better than you are. And I have felt this so hard. So when I started my current job almost 2 years ago, I was about $2,000 in credit card debt. That was actually my only debt aside from my student loans. That's when I started to really tighten my budget and pay attention to what I was spending. So when I went from being a stay-at-home mom to working in the workplace, I got to see a lot of people around me and their spending habits just regularly, because it's people I work with every day, or I'm just going out more and seeing what people are buying. And I definitely started to feel like I didn't quite fit in with the way people were spending. It feels like I have less money than other people. But I've definitely found some reasons as to why that may not be true, or why it may be true and totally valid. So I wanted to go over that list with you today. So the very first reason, and probably the most common one, especially nowadays, is that they are in debt. So it is quite possible that everyone around you, and especially on social media, it is quite possible that people are buying things on credit, getting car loans, mortgages obviously is a big one because houses are so expensive, but yeah, to a lesser extent, just buying things on credit. So I looked up some credit card statistics, and apparently the average person has about $6,700 in credit card debt alone. So that is a very high balance. If you're someone who has $0 in credit card debt, then you are ahead of the game. Like, you are doing great. Even if you only have a little bit, like if you have less than 1,000 on credit cards, you're doing awesome. And on top of that, about 60% of people carry that balance over. So there are some people like myself who will put everything on a credit card, pay it off each month so that you don't get interest and you don't have a balance carryover. But many people, apparently up to 60% of people, will carry a balance over, meaning they're earning interest and paying more for all of the stuff they're putting on their credit card. And that is a hole that is hard to dig yourself out of. Like I said, I had some credit card debt when I first started my job. So that is one reason I went back to work after being a stay-at-home mom. Our expenses were just getting too much. We were having to put more and more in credit cards and then not being able to pay that off. So I have definitely been there. And even way before that, like when I was in college and when I had my first credit card, I learned the hard way that when that balance goes up, it is so hard to pay it back down. So just be mindful of that many people are probably just buying things on credit. So the next reason that you may feel like everyone around you has more money and can spend more than you is because you're only seeing the highlight reel. You're not seeing the stress that they went through in the background. And this is especially true for social media, but even in person, I mean, it's possible that they saved up for a long time to go on that vacation that you're seeing. Or maybe, like I said before, they're just putting everything on a credit card and you're just not seeing the stress and all the background noise. You were only seeing the result of what was purchased. So the third reason is also one that hits close to home, and that is that they had help. So many people do get help from their family or the government or other sources that make it easier for them to buy the things that you are seeing or take the vacations they're taking or any of those things. So for example, my parents helped me out a lot. Even after college, when I was still a young adult, they would help me out quite a bit with rent and definitely groceries. Even when I took over rent, they were still helping me with groceries because they wanted to make sure I ate. But aside from that, once they stopped with that, I was actually able to get government assistance for a while, particularly with my health insurance. I was on Medicaid for a while. I was actually on Medicaid when I had my daughter. So I remember people saying, oh, I bet that hospital bill really hit you when you had your child. And it actually didn't. I mean, pretty much all of it was covered through Medicaid, and that was help that I was getting from the government. So many people are in situations where they're getting help from somewhere, and that allows them to have more money for other things. One reason could also be because they got lucky in some way. So it's possible that they invested somewhere at the right time, got a really good payout on an investment or something to that effect. I mean, it could also be as dramatic as winning the lottery. I mean, people who win the lottery went from nothing to having a ton of money, usually back to nothing after that, but still, for a while they were very lucky. But yeah, there are definitely circumstances in life where you do just fall into some extra money sometimes. And aside from just having the money itself, this can also be true for things like finding the right job. Maybe you happen to find a really high paying good job, you were at the right place at the right time. I mean, there are all sorts of things that can fall into the category of just being lucky. And similar to that, one thing that can contribute to luck would be that these people may be taking bigger risks than you. So for me, when I do investments, I always invest in ETFs or index funds, which are very stable and very unlikely to just drop out of nowhere because it takes stocks from the biggest companies. So if an ETF or index fund just drops, then we have bigger problems in the world because that means a lot of big companies just went under. But because of that, they tend to rise a little slower, but it's a very steady rise. So I am not going to just all of a sudden make a ton of money on my investments. It's going to be a slow and steady sort of build. But if you remember a few years ago with the GameStop stocks, where their stock price just shot up and a ton of people made a lot of money. A lot of people also lost a lot of money if you jumped in at the wrong time. Or I remember the Robinhood fiasco where you weren't able to buy or sell, or definitely not sell. So a lot of people ended up losing money. But anyway, either way, some people are just willing to take those bigger risks, and sometimes it leads to a bigger reward. I remember 2 years ago when Bitcoin was only, I think, $2,000 per Bitcoin. I wanted to invest in Bitcoin so bad, but I just did not have the extra income, and I didn't want to take the risk because at the time it was still sort of a new thing. It was obviously starting to take off a bit, but I knew in my mind it could easily just drop to zero. I mean, Bitcoin could have just been gone from the face of the earth and I would be out $2,000. So it was just too much of a risk that I didn't want to take. But of course, if I had taken it, I would have gotten a nice chunk of change when it shot up to, was it 100,000 or whatever it was at its highest point. I could have gotten quite a nice payout, but it easily could have gone the other way too. So taking risk can definitely contribute to having more or less money. It's just one of those situations, again, with luck, you just don't know. So the sixth reason is going to be that you have different priorities. So I know for me and my husband, as our incomes have gone up a bit, whenever we get a raise, we don't start spending more. We don't increase our cost of living. The extra money we make goes into savings, retirement, and just personal investments, things like that. So it's stuff where we're building wealth in the background, but it's not things you can see. So that may be you as well. Whereas other people may get a raise and go out and buy like a designer purse, a new car, whatever it is. So your priorities might be what is creating that image. So there's a saying that you can either be rich and have money or look rich and look like you have money. So that's one thing also. Some people prefer to wear their money with the brand names on their clothes. Others prefer to have their money in a bank or invested, whatever it is. The next one is going to be cost of living differences. So you may see this a lot on social media where someone lives in an expensive city, whereas you may live in a very small town in rural America, or you may live in a completely different part of the world. But no matter where you live, there's going to be cost of living differences. And it's even true just city to city, because I know where I live now, it's a little bit higher cost of living than some of the cities that are maybe half an hour away. So that is a big contributing factor. I actually moved to New Jersey I'm from Kentucky originally, but I lived in Ohio. So just Kentucky and Ohio pricing is way different than New Jersey pricing. So it was a bit of a shock to see just how expensive it is to live in Jersey. The good thing is the pay is a little better here, but either way, I mean, housing in Jersey versus housing in Kentucky, It is so, there's such a huge difference. Like, I can't even believe what the cost difference is. So that is definitely a big factor when you're looking at what people are spending versus what you're spending. So the next one is that they started saving sooner or investing sooner and were able to get more money. So this is definitely true. You may see this for older individuals. Like, I know my parents obviously have a lot more money than I do because they are quite a bit older than me and they started a long time ago. So if you even people who are like 20 now and start investing at 20, once they get to my age, they are going to have way more money than I have at the moment, because I actually just started saving and investing over the past couple years. And I'm 36, so I started kind of late. But if you're someone who starts in your early 20s, then you are so set, because you have so much time for that money to accrue interest and build up over time. So starting early is really the key when you're building wealth. So it makes it a lot easier to have some extra money on hand. And this is also true for things like buying a house. I mean, if someone bought a house in the 90s, then they're doing way better than someone trying to buy a house today. And number 9 is one that hits close to home also, and that is that they have less responsibilities. So I have a daughter with my husband. We live in an apartment on our own. So many people may still live at home with their parents or may not have kids, and that is such a huge factor. Like, I know people that I work with, they tend to take a lot of vacations, they can buy nicer clothes, things like that, but it's because they either live at home and or don't have kids. So those are the two biggest expenses for my family. So if you don't have those, then you're probably doing pretty well, and you definitely have a little extra spending money, because those daycare costs, preschool costs, the cost of rent, I mean, that's a lot. So that's a big factor. So number 10 is kind of an odd one, but that is that they lie. I mean, it's quite possible that people around you are lying about how much money they have. I think this is definitely true on social media. So just because I guess it goes back to the first point of buying things on credit. So they're just lying to themselves and to everyone else about the amount of money they have. So they go and just blow a whole bunch of money acting like they can afford things. Then they look rich to everyone else, but in reality they aren't. So the next point is one that's very true for me at the moment, and that is that you're still building your wealth. So it's not that you don't have money, it's just that you don't have money that you're flaunting. You don't have money to show, because you're not buying things, you're buying assets. You might be buying stocks, or you might be putting your money in savings, things that will build wealth in the future. So even though you don't have money right now to buy these things, you will definitely have it in the future if you're prioritizing that kind of saving. The next one is generational struggles. So you may be someone who grew up with no money, you were very poor, you didn't learn proper money building techniques. So at this point, you just may not have much money due to that, where someone else may have grown up with a lot of money, upper middle class or even more. They know how to save money, and they're able to have that extra money to spend on a nicer car or whatever it is. This can definitely be something that is hard for people to escape, because if you never learn the proper ways to build wealth, then it can really affect your future and how much money you have. So it really is a generational struggle that can happen. Now, this isn't always true. I mean, it's quite possible for you to break out of that, and it can go in either direction, where maybe you had no money and you were able to build money. The opposite is true as well, that maybe you're someone who was born into a very rich family, but you didn't understand the importance of how to build and retain that wealth, and then you end up not having any money. That's possible also. And number 13, and the final point, I don't remember, did I say there were 15? There are 13. Anyway, number 13 is that you actually budget. So you pay attention or track your expenses at the very least. So you are very hyper aware of where all of your money is going. So you don't want to just frivolously spend on things that aren't going to provide value to you or that you don't actually want. You might be very cautious about what you spend money on. Whereas a lot of other people, they don't budget or track track expenses or even reflect on what they're spending on. I mean, they may be just throwing money at whatever they see that they want to buy. So that is one that can happen as well. And it also goes back to the first point where they're just buying it on credit. They're using debt to pay for things. So a lot of these points really do just kind of build on each other and reflect on each other to create this circumstance where you feel like you just don't have money, or you think everyone else has more money than you do. So I hope this list was helpful. I really tried to think of things that I had noticed when I was first starting to get that feeling that, wow, everyone else has more money than me. What am I doing wrong? And I think for me, I guess I already mentioned a lot of it, but having a family, a daughter, paying our own rent, like that is such an expense right there. And then being very careful about going into debt or spending things on, buying things on a credit card. Those are things that we just don't do. We're really cautious about things that we do buy. Even though it sometimes feels that way, that we don't have more money, I always just remember that we are at that point where we're trying to build future wealth. So we're being very careful. So it will pay off in the future. But let me know what your situation is, and did any of these points hit close to home for you? Is there one that really stands out, or is there anything that I missed? Because I'm sure there are other reasons that I probably didn't think of. Just drop me a comment and a like, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!